What is an EMP event? What's a Faraday cage? When will the next one happen? And how can you protect yourself? Stay with me for the next few minutes to learn the answers to these questions and more. What's up, my friends? My name is Brandon and welcome to Mortal Survival. Whether you're a survivalist, a prepper, male, female, believer, non-believer, Democrat, Republican, or none of the above, welcome to a channel that offers something for everyone. For the next 15 to 20 minutes, I'm going to provide you with what I hope is some useful and relevant information about natural man-made EMP events. I'm also going to show you an easy idea for a low-cost and easy-to-construct Faraday cage that will help you to protect items that would prove beneficial following an EMP event. To begin with, I'm going to provide some information obtained from a U.S. government joint hearing before the Subcommittee on National Security and the Subcommittee on the Interior of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform in the House of Representatives, 114th Congress, first session on May 13, 2015, with a serial number of 114-42, just in case you have an urge to look this up. Even though this information is several years old, EMP events were found to be relevant then and even more so today. Some of the members and guests present for this meeting include Trey Gowdy, Ron DeSantis, and Dr. Peter Pry. Here's the content of the government's joint hearing, which may be a little dry but nevertheless interesting and at the same time a bit alarming. This transcript reads as follows. An electromagnetic pulse, or EMP, also known as a transient electromagnetic disturbance, or TED, is a brief burst of electromagnetic energy. An EMP could be created through an attack from a missile, nuclear weapon, radio frequency weapon, or geomagnetic storm caused by the sun. Fallout from an EMP event, either man-made or natural, could be extremely significant, ranging from the loss of electrical power for months, which would deplete energy sources of power such as emergency batteries and backup generators. This loss of power would have cascading consequences for supplying basic necessities such as food and water, and result in the loss of life. The electrical grid is necessary to support critical infrastructure responsible for the supply and distribution of food and water, fuel, communications, transportation, financial transactions, and emergency and government services. Significant damage to the electrical grid during an EMP event would quickly and significantly degrade the supply of these basic necessities. EMPs can also be caused by solar storms, also referred to as a geomagnetic disturbance, and are an everyday occurrence. They just don't always hit the Earth. Two significant storms that did enter the Earth's atmosphere occurred in 1859 and 1921 respectively. Given the limited use of electricity in the mid-19th and early 20th century, the impact on society was relatively minimal. Today, however, society depends heavily on a variety of technologies that are vulnerable to the effects of intense solar storms. Scientists predict that these storms impact the Earth once every 100 to 150 years. So it's not a question of if, but a question of when. The occurrence today on an event like the 1921 storm could result in a large-scale and prolonged blackouts affecting more than 100 million people. The National Academy of Sciences estimates the cost of damage from the most extreme solar weather at $1 to $2 trillion with a recovery time of 4 to 10 years. The costs from even short-term blackouts are significant. In July of 1977, a blackout in New York that lasted only one day resulted in widespread looting and the breakdown of law through many New York neighborhoods. The blackout cost approximately $346 million and nearly 3,000 people were arrested during a 26-hour period. In August of 2003, more than 200 power plants shut down as a result of the electricity cutoff caused by cascading failure. The blackout affected Ohio, New York, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and parts of Canada. To look at this threat, Congress has created two EMP commissions which reported their findings in 2004 and 2008. Based in large part on the recommendations, a bill has been introduced in every Congress since 2009 to strengthen protection of the electrical grid by mitigating the effects of an EMP. Some bills have passed the House, but no bills have yet become law. Congress is not alone in its assessment of the EMP threat. State governments such as New York and Massachusetts have taken action themselves to protect portions of the electrical grid located within their respective states. Even some individual utilities have correctly assessed their vulnerability to EMP and hardened a few of their critical electrical control centers. The Department of Defense recently decided to move the North American Aerospace Defense Command NORAD back inside Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado because the mountain is EMP hardened and would allow the military to sustain communications and homeland defense operations despite an EMP event. Now remember, this text is taken from a hearing that was back in 2015, so keep that in mind when I'm talking about these dates and when things happened. Prior to this joint hearing, Dr. Peter Pry wrote in the Wall Street Journal about the military's decision and rightly surmised, quote, "The Pentagon was wise to move NORAD back into Cheyenne Mountain, but how are the American people to survive?" End quote. The Department of Homeland Security, the federal agency responsible for protecting American citizens, is not doing enough to lead an interagency effort to mitigate the impact of an EMP event, leaving vast populations of Americans vulnerable to the effects of an EMP. While government officials, scientists, and other experts may disagree on the imminence of an electromagnetic pulse event, the EMP Commission established by Congress in 2001 to assess the threat of an EMP attack reported that our national electrical grid and other U.S. critical infrastructures could be significantly disrupted by a sudden, high-intensity energy field burst. Now, as the chairman noted, this could be large in scale and produced by a nuclear explosion. It could also be created through the use of batteries, reactive chemicals, and other non-nuclear devices, or be the product of a natural magnetic storm. According to the Commission's 2008 report, because of the ubiquitous dependence of the U.S. society on electrical power systems, its vulnerability to an EMP attack, coupled with the EMP's particular damage mechanisms, creates the possibility of a long-term catastrophic consequence. Dr. Pry went on to state, quote, "First, what I think we must understand about the threat is that it's not merely theoretical. It is a real threat. In the military doctrines of Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran, they plan to make a nuclear EMP attack against the United States. We have seen North Korea and Iran exercise this, including by launching ballistic missiles off of a freighter at sea, which would enable the possibility of a completely anonymous EMP attack. During the nuclear crisis we had with North Korea in 2013, Kim Jong-un was threatening to make nuclear missile strikes against the United States in the aftermath of their third illegal nuclear test. In the midst of that crisis, North Korea orbited a satellite over the South Pole that passed over the territory of the United States on the optimum trajectory and altitude to both evade our national missile defenses and, had there been a nuclear warhead, to place an EMP field over all 48 contiguous United States that would have had catastrophic consequences. That was the KSM-3 satellite, and that satellite still passes over us. It's still in orbit and passes over us with regularity." End quote. Dr. Pry continued to explain how an EMP attack is part of the military doctrine of many foreign militaries. A blitzkrieg-type operation that combines cyber attacks, physical sabotage, and non-nuclear and nuclear EMP weapons could basically bring a civilization to its knees. A failed state like Iran or North Korea could theoretically defeat and destroy a highly advanced society like our own. Dr. Pry further stated, quote, "This would be unprecedented in history, where you would have a situation where a state like Iran or North Korea, or even a subnational actor like a terrorist group, if they could get a hold of that one nuclear bomb and do in combination with cyber attacks and physical sabotage to crash our critical infrastructures, especially the electric grid, and basically destroy our civilization." But they write about it, they exercise it, they're serious about it, and we actually see this being practiced in real life in some countries. Back in June of last year, while ISIS was sweeping over northern Iraq, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula blacked out the entire grid in the state of Yemen, put 18 cities and about 24 million people into the dark. That's the first time in history that a terrorist group has blacked out an entire country. End quote. This concludes this part of the video related to information shared from a U.S. government joint hearing on May 13, 2015. While this was a great introduction to our government's view of an EMP event, let's talk more about how an EMP event would affect you and your family. So what could an EMP damage? Well, damage from an EMP event will vary depending on the power and nature of the event. Since an EMP creates a rogue current of electricity that travels through a device and damages, disrupts, or destroys circuits, the amount of damage will depend on the nature and overall power of the EMP event and the location of your device in relation to the event. Some of the items that you should be concerned about would include TVs, radios, CBs, and other broadcast equipment, power grid, transformers and substations, landlines and mobile phones, computers and internet-connected devices, vehicles, aircraft and their control systems, refrigerators and other appliances, generators and power supplies. Basically, anything electronic or powered by electricity could be damaged by an EMP. So what's the difference between a solar and nuclear EMP? A nuclear EMP is a burst of electromagnetic radiation created by a nuclear explosion. It is more energetic and has a shorter burst than a solar EMP. Many scientists have theorized that a large nuclear device detonated approximately 300 miles above the state of Kansas would affect all the continental U.S. Now, a solar flare EMP, also known as a coronal mass ejection or CME or geomagnetic storm, is a common occurrence. Most do not reach the surface of the Earth and cause absolutely no damage to electrical components. However, even small solar EMPs can cause power grid blackouts and can last longer than a nuclear EMP. In light of recent events such as Russia's invasion of Ukraine and ongoing issues with North Korea, China, and Iran, the likelihood of a nuclear EMP increases. A nuclear EMP simply requires a nuclear weapon to be delivered to a predetermined height above a predetermined location by a rocket, high-flying aircraft, or ICBM. Once it arrives at the appropriate altitude, the bomb is detonated to create the EMP. So how bad would the damage be? Both the nuclear and solar EMP would create very little, if any, physical destruction. Your house would probably still be standing and your life would probably be spared. However, a nuclear EMP may result in some fallout that could result in an illness or death, but any loss should be minimal. That said, while your home and life would probably be spared, the resulting EMP would destroy or at least damage a wide range of electrical devices that you depend on for everyday living. And the power grid that provides electricity to your home and office would probably cease to function. Nearly all vehicles with electronic systems would fail to start, leaving people stranded throughout the affected area. In a perfect EMP event, those living in the affected area would basically be thrust back to the dark ages. So how long would it take to recover from an EMP? Just as the amount of damage inflicted by an EMP would depend on the type, power, altitude, and location of the EMP event, the recovery time would also depend on these same factors. Thus, the time to recover from an EMP could be hours, days, weeks, or months, or even years. Since we haven't yet experienced a major EMP disruption on today's technological infrastructure, predicting an EMP's impact, duration, and recovery time is a best guess scenario. So how do we protect devices from an EMP? It's commonly believed and proven to a large degree that you can shield or protect electronic devices by protecting them from the pulse or radiation emitted from an EMP. While there are many different ways to achieve this, I'm going to show you how to build a Faraday cage that is relatively easy and cost-effective. A large, fairly cheap Faraday cage can be a steel garbage can or other steel enclosure. Some experts recommend using grounding rods in conjunction with the Faraday cage, but many believe this step isn't needed. Ideally, the steel of the garbage can interacts with the EMP and redirects the electrical charge, protecting the contents of the garbage can. Now, I've seen many people place their electronic components directly into the can, relying solely on the protection afforded by the metal can and cardboard barrier that lines the interior of the can. No additional effort's been made to protect the device once it's placed inside the can. I've also watched videos in which people place a can inside of a can with a cardboard between them. While either of these methods may serve to protect your electronic devices, I personally like to wrap each individual item before placing it in the can. I like to believe this extra step will guarantee that any EMP will be disrupted and neutralized before it reaches the circuits of my stored items. To do this, I simply wrap each item in a couple layers of tin foil and heavy-duty construction paper, cardboard, and even old t-shirts. You can repeat this wrapping process as many times as you like, as I feel the more barriers you create between the EMP and your electronic component, the more likely you are to protect that component from damaging electronic pulses. Some of the items that you may want to store in a Faraday cage may include a laptop computer, which can be used to play movies and music. In an SHTF situation, entertainment will be a welcome reprieve. Most of us still have DVDs around the house, and most laptops have a DVD player, or you can include an external DVD player in your protected items list. I'd also recommend that you have a thumb drive with songs that each of your family members can relate to. Don't just save popular 80s hits if you have young children in the house who relate to present-day pop music. Now, the computer will only work if you have a way to charge the battery, which can be done with a solar or gas-powered generator. This is another item that I recommend you protect in a Faraday cage. Following an EMP event, a source of power will be essential to providing some of the everyday conveniences we take for granted today. A relatively inexpensive generator can be used to power cell phones for basic offline games, photos and videos, a computer, a CB radio, rechargeable lights, and more. Which leads me to the next item I recommend for your Faraday cage, and that's a CB radio. Communication will be vital in a SHTF scenario, and not all of us are ham radio operators or will have the means to power a ham radio. That said, with a little bit of ingenuity, a generator can be used to power a CB radio, which could provide you with some means of communication with the outside world. Maybe the EMP event only affects a 200-mile area, which you may not know if you don't have some means of communication. Along with the lines of communication, I would recommend you have an emergency radio, preferably one that has a manual power option, in your Faraday cage. Portable walkie-talkies may also be a good item to protect. While they don't typically allow for long-range transmissions or communications, they will allow you to talk to family members who may need to venture outside for food and water or to complete minor structural repairs. Maintaining communication with your team will help to keep everyone safe. Although I didn't take a lot of time to walk you through every step of creating a Faraday cage, I hope you understand the importance of one. It's not a matter of if an EMP event will happen, it's a matter of when. Whether or not it happens in your lifetime or the lifetime of your children, protecting electronic devices that your family may need to help in a survival situation is a wise and practical decision. What are some other items that you would keep in a Faraday cage? Do you have any other ideas for the construction of a Faraday cage or information related to an EMP event? If so, please take a few minutes to share with other viewers. Any information we can learn from each other will serve to help us to better prepare for the unexpected. Until next time, be safe, be prepared, and be ready.